Hey, good morning, guys. Hey, I wanted to hop on here to share something with you. And as I was riding my bicycle this morning, it was kind of windy, and as I was riding, I was thinking to myself that this is not a day of just riding for exercising, but God began to speak to me and begin to give me a profound revelation concerning this, because at first when I got out and started riding and then I realized that the wind was blowing, I began to say to myself, this is going to require more effort than any other morning. And I noticed that as coming back, that it didn't require a whole lot of effort. And God began to tell me, he said, son, this is not just something that's pertaining as a physical movement, but I want to give you a revelation. And how many of y'all know that sometimes the Spirit of God, he would use natural things to birth forth the supernatural revelation? And as God began to talk to me, he said, I want you to begin to understand what I'm showing you concerning this. It's all about alignment, obedience, and the flow of my spirit. Because a lot of times when you often look at scriptures, you will see that the wind represents the Spirit of God. In other words, it represents his direction, his movement, and his influence. And whenever you get a chance, I want you to look at John, the 3rd chapter, the 8th verse, where it talks about the wind blows where it wishes. And Acts 2:2, where it talks about, and suddenly there came a sound from heaven as a rushing mighty wind. And it was really interesting because it seems as if that I was experiencing a resistance as I was going forward, as I was moving forward. But coming back, I can see the difference is that once the wind was behind me, it wasn't no longer resisting, but it had the ability to push me. And I noticed that on the way going, as the wind was blowing, I was going against the wind, which it at times was causing me to slow down. And I just want to talk to some people this morning, because when we're walking the flow of God, his Spirit brings grace. It makes things easier. And what I begin to realize coming back, that I begin to experience a type of acceleration. But when we find ourselves walking or going against the wind of God, it brings a strain on us. It brings a resistance. It also can sometimes bring what I call unnecessary battles. And this is what I want to talk to you about. And because what God began to show me, that even with the intense resisting that I felt as I was riding this morning, he told me, he said, son, this is not random. He said, this is my way of showing you how spiritual resistance works, because it'll sometimes make you feel that you're out of alignment and you're moving in a direction he didn't authorize. And God began to show me, he said, but sometimes it can show you how a person can actually begin to force themselves down a path that he have not endorsed. And he also began to tell me, he said, son, it's also a time when people try to move ahead of my timing. And the Lord spoke to me. He said, son, but there are times when people ignore this place when it seems like there's a resisting. He said they're ignoring my nudging or my conviction. But what the Spirit of God is saying, that this is what it feels like, son, when you try to move into places I have not graced you to enter. And the Lord told me, he said, son, what I want you to understand, that resistance is not always demonic. Sometimes resistance, son, is directional. Am I talking to someone this morning? When God resists you, that means that he wants to redirect you, or he wants to bring you to a place of realigning you. I know. Sometimes it seems like that when we want to do things our way and we want to do things in our strength. But sometimes when we do it our way, we find ourselves having to work harder, and things become not so easy, and things become heavy. But what God is saying, he say, don't fight against the wind, but just make up your mind and tell yourself that I'm going to go with the wind. I'm going to go with the flow of God. Because like I say, when I was riding back, I felt the wind that was behind me. It was pushing me instead of opposing. And I begin to see things change. Things begin to change. I begin to see the difference when I was going versus me coming back. Because when I was coming back, I found myself that pedaling became easier. It was lighter. The speed increased. And I didn't have to work so hard. I didn't have to put a whole lot of effort in it. And I even began to recognize my breathing coming back. My breathing was much easier, and I felt more relaxed in coming back versus going. And I began to experience the movement became even smoother. And then I find myself, y'all, coming back versus me going, that the distance, it was less strain. It was less pressure. And the Lord told me, he said, this is symbolic, son, of my grace. That's what he told me. And the Lord told me, he said, son, but when you go with me, you will begin to experience acceleration. He said, along with acceleration, it comes clarity. Along with clarity, it becomes favor and even open doors. And that's when we begin to experience a peace, y'all. Because how many of y'all know that a lot of times when things are opposing us, when things are resistant, it causes more frustration than we are able to experience peace. But when you find yourself going with the wind of God or the flow of God, that's when you begin to find peace. That's when you begin to find strength that you didn't have before, and you begin to understand, and you begin to feel that the momentum is effortless. So what do you mean that is effortless? You don't have to put as much energy in it. When you go with the flow of God, or when you go with the flow of the Spirit. And that's why in Zechariah 4:6 it says, not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit. So what are you saying, prophet? That's when you realize that things become more easier. Why? Because the wind of God began to carry you. And I'm telling you, the Lord began to tell me, he said, son, one thing about a wind, he said, when you were going, he said, you didn't have the control. You didn't control the direction of the wind while you was riding. The Lord told me, he said, son, the wind controlled the condition while you were riding. And God began to tell me, and how many of y'all know that God will shift the spiritual wind in our lives to signal a change? He would begin to reveal the end of a season. He will direct our movement. He will close a path that we're trying to force our way down. And then sometimes it protects you from entering the wrong place. And the Lord told me, he said, son, if the wind ever becomes overwhelming, what God is really saying, he's saying, turn around, shift your direction, stop here. The route is not yours. And the Lord saying, you are forcing a door that I've closed. And the Lord told me that, and the Lord spoke to me, he said, son, resistance sometimes becomes your instructions. And how many of y'all believe that? That a lot of times resistance becomes your instruction. And the Lord told me, he said, son, what I want to show you, that when the wind was pushing you, it was allowing you to come to a place of alignment. But when it was resisting against you, it puts you in a place of misalignment. And how many of y'all know that anytime that we begin to go against the wind of God, of the Spirit of God, things begin to feel heavy. And that's when we find ourselves trying to push ourselves ahead of God, and everything become draining. You begin to find yourself becoming frustrated, and sometimes if you're not careful, you become depressed and you just want to throw in the towel. But what God is saying, he said, don't fight against the wind. He said, go with the wind. But one thing that God began to tell me, he said, son, I use resistance as a correction, my God. And I said, God, what do you mean? Because God told me, he says, son, when there's a divine resistance, it protects you from things that can destroy you. It protects you from things that are coming to harm you. And the Lord told me, he said, son, the moment you align with me, the wind changes direction. And not only that, y'all, he began to tell me, God said, son, but when I begin to breathe on something, it naturally multiplies and it expands. And I said, God, what do you mean? God said, when it naturally multiplies and expands, he says, son, that means that there's an acceleration that is taking place. And this is what the Lord began to, and this is what the Lord began to tell me. He said, this morning, your riding your bicycle wasn't about exercising. It was about instructions for your next season. And I want to share this with you as the Lord began to speak to me. The Lord began to say, my son, I allowed the resistance because I'm realigning your steps. I'm telling you, that's why some of y'all are feeling such a resistance, because it's not coming in to destroy you. It's not coming to overtake you, but it's an indication that God is about to realign your steps. So I encourage you this morning, do not fight against the shift of the Spirit. I know, because what's feeling hard right now, and you may not understand, but it's a sign that you are being pushed by the Spirit of God. That you are being pushed in the direction that the Spirit desires for you to be pushed. And when you begin to move in the direction of God, that's when you can understand that God is blowing, and then it begin to make things easier, and you have much clarity, and you have what I call a supernatural acceleration. And what the Lord is saying this morning, yield to his wind. And he said, you know that I will carry you further than your strength would ever be able to carry you. And like I mentioned earlier, when you go against the wind of God, you put a strain on yourself. But when you go with the wind of God, you would find yourself having the strength. And I can just be transparent for a moment, because personally, when I find myself going against the wind of God or the Spirit of God, that's when I begin to experience a heaviness. And that's when I find myself being out of alignment with God. But when I came to the realization and the truth of the wind of God and the Spirit of God, it made things much easier. Things was much smoother. And then instead of fighting, just striving, I find myself relaxing and gliding in the things of God. And how many of y'all know that it requires more effort to go against the wind of God when you can just go with the flow and the wind of God? And I just wanted to hop on here and to share this with you. Yes, some of y'all saying, Prophet, I'm experiencing a resistance. I'm experiencing what you would call opposition. But what the Lord is saying, stop wasting your time going against the wind, and just fall in place and start going with the wind. I'm telling y'all, it'll be much easier. It'll be less pain, less headaches. It will be less confusion. It will be less depression, less oppression. And I'm telling you, and a lot of times we find ourselves going against the wind of God or the Spirit of God when we find ourselves trying to create our own agenda, when we're trying to move in our own direction. And the Bible says that there's a way that seemeth right. See, sometimes God will send a wind, and like I stated earlier, the wind may be overwhelming, it may be heavy, but sometimes God will send that wind to say, turn around. Shift your focus. Shift your direction. Because where you're headed, it's a road that seemeth right, but the scriptures say at the end, there's death and destruction. And God's saying a lot of that can be avoided if we just stop fighting against the wind of the flow of God. And just make up in our mind that I'm not going to no longer fight against it. I'm going to flow with it. And y'all continue to pray for me. Love you guys. Continue to pray for me and enjoy the rest of your day.